Right. Good evening. In the previous class, in the last class, we identified the parts, various parts which are available in a uniform resource locator, right? So I'm sure that you all have the ability to identify the parts which are in a URL, right? Uniform resource locator. There are multiple parts, not one, not two. It may have 6 parts, right? So we identify all these 6 parts. Today I'm not going to explain those parts or the techniques used for identifying the parts. I'm going to explain those 3 words, right? One has already been explained, that is protocol, right? You already got some idea about protocol. There are 2 other words to be explained. One is domain name, the other one is top level domain name, right? So before I explain those 2 words, I take 1 or 2 minutes to take those URLs again, right? So this is only for a recall, right? Look here. This is the one which I talked about. It's a lengthy URL, right? You have protocol 1, service or World Wide Web, that is 2, sometimes called service, World Wide Web, so service. Third, ni.lk, right? Domain name. Fourth, top level domain name. Fifth, web page or resource, sometimes called file name. 6, actually it's a folder, but since that folder shows the path for the file, that can be called path, right? Path to resource. Even you can take that as a folder, right? Okay, let me take one more. So here HTTP it's protocol, www it's a service or World Wide Web. Third, ni.lk, that's domain name. Fourth, top level domain name, TLD. Number 5, again a web page name, resource name. Here number 6, look here, exam/OL. So what are they? They are, both of them are folders, right? Even OL is a folder because OL is the one which has exam.html. Where is that folder OL? That is in exam folder. So both of them are folders, or in other words, that is a path which leads to the resource. Okay, so hope everyone knows the path, everyone knows how to identify the path, right? Okay, so in the previous class we talked about protocols, right? I explained everything about protocol. So what is protocol? Set of rules used for exchanging files or whatever in a network, right? So when there are 2 computers connected in a network, definitely they need to exchange some files or informations. So they have to follow, or they should follow some rules. Those rules are called protocols. I clearly explain everything. One of the protocols is HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. What is HTTP? It is a set of rules about exchanging hypertext documents. What are hypertext documents? Web page contents, text, images, right? Videos, animation, everything is hypertext, right? So that is HTTP. If it is HTTPS, see there is an S additionally added. That S means secure. I already explained. Those URLs which have HTTPS must be secure, right? It is very secure than the other URLs which have HTTP. So I mentioned that websites which are always dealing with customers or clients always have HTTPS, right? So I explain everything, right? So come to the point. Today we have to take the domain name, right? So now you all can identify the domain name, right? If I give a URL, then you can identify the domain name. There is no issue because we took enough time to identify the domain names. But you should understand the term domain name. You should understand what the term domain name is, right? That is important, right? Look here. I take a URL, simple URL. Okay, take this URL. Okay, http www.nie.lk. Okay, so assume that you have internet in your computer. Just take an imagination, right? So you have an internet in your computer. You open a web browser. We know to view web pages or websites, we must have web browsers, right? So you just open the web browser and type this address, http www.nie.lk. You just type the URL. What will happen? Maybe after some seconds, or within seconds, that nie.lk web page or website is displayed on your screen. Within a second, it is there. Even if I try this URL in my computer, right, I will get the same result. It will be on my screen. Even if your friend tries that in his or her smartphone, right, she or he also gets that same result. So now see, if you think this this particular situation, see, it's a kind of situation where we all admire, because you just type http www.nie.lk, right? You just type this URL, but within a second, your computer identified that particular web server. I already explained about web server. You know, all the websites are kept in web servers. We don't know where this web server is located. It may be in Sri Lanka, it may be in UK, it may be in other countries. Even though it is LK, it may be in any country, right? So we don't know where it is. But within a second, that particular website is displayed on your screen. How it's possible? Now, if you take this scenario, two computers communicated each other, right? So in this instance, two computers communicated each other. What are the two computers? One is yours, right? Your computer. The other one is the computer, or is the server where the NIE website is kept. So your computer requests the particular website, that particular web server sends that or sent it to you. So there is a communication taken place. In fact, that communication became successful. Imagine how it's possible. I already explained in the previous classes that if two computers want to communicate, right? If two computers want to exchange something, definitely both computers must have IP address, right? So without having an IP address, you know, one computer cannot identify the other. So if two computers want to communicate, this is the fundamental rule. Both of them must have IP address, that numerical unique address, right? But here, I didn't type any IP address. Suppose if I type the IP address in my computer, if I type the IP address of the web server in my computer, it is possible to identify the web server, because my computer knows that location if the IP address is given, because my computer is connected in the internet, that particular web server also connected in the internet, then it is possible. But the problem is, I did not type IP address. I typed only what? This one, right? URL. But now, even though I typed URL, my computer was able to identify the server location and got the website. How it's possible? Right, so we have to understand this one. Listen to me very carefully, right? So forget about this part. This may not be important now, right? http://, leave it. Right, keep an eye on www.nie.lk. That is more than enough, right? Even that www not important, right? Take the domain name, right? Focus on domain name. That may be okay for now, right? See, nie.lk. Listen to me carefully. nie.lk seems to be text, English words, right? English phrase for us, right? Of course, they are English words, right? NIE.lk. But even though this seems to be English words for us, the reality is it is not the English word, right? Yes, it is displayed as English word, but this English word or this English phrase is set, or is we call it as is mapped. Mapped means it is set to an IP address, right? This NIE.lk is set to an IP address. For our eyes, this seems to be NIE.lk, but actually this is not NIE.lk. This is the IP address of what? IP address of that particular web server. So I assume that 90.95.10.10. This is the IP address. But for us, it seems to be NIE.lk. So what happens when we type this NIE.lk, right? This NIE.lk will be converted into IP address. I will explain about how that NIE.lk or how that domain name is converted into IP address later, maybe later in this unit, right? So now you have to understand that this NIE.lk is represented an IP address, but we are unable to see the IP address, right? But when we type that NIE.lk, that domain name will be converted into what? Into IP address, right? So now your computer got the IP address. We are unable to see that, right? But now your computer got the IP address. Since your computer has the IP address of the destination, which means web server, definitely it can access that web server. So straight away, my computer sends a request to the web server. Now, as a reply, that web server sends that particular web page to my computer. That is happening whenever you type the URLs. Even if you type facebook.com, listen, facebook.com, you type https www.facebook.com, right? Forget about the other parts, take that facebook.com domain name, right? So for us, it's facebook.com, but actually it is not facebook.com. That term facebook.com is mapped or is set to an IP address. That IP address is not visible there. Facebook.com is visible in the URL, right? When we type that domain name in the computer, in the web browser, immediately that domain name is converted into IP address. I tell you later about how the domain name is converted, right? Wait until I take it. So once your computer has the Facebook server IP address, immediately it knows the location, because as I mentioned earlier, your computer and the Facebook server, both of them are connected in internet. If both of them are connected in internet, it is possible for communication. Assume that you have internet. Your friend also has internet. Now, both of you can communicate through Viber. That is possible, but right? It is possible because you and your friend have internet. Similarly, my computer has internet, web server has internet. So my computer has the ability to identify the web server. So now Facebook website is displayed. Have you understood? So I straight away come to the point. Domain name is nothing. Domain name is the IP address of what? Of the web server where the website is located. But always domain name is written in English words. Right. Now you may have the doubt, right? So see, in a domain name, right? Instead of using in a URL, instead of using domain name, we want IP address. IP address is the one, right? This NIE.lk actually useless. We want the IP address because IP address is the one to identify the destinations. So you may have the doubt of having domain names in URLs. You may think that instead of using domain name, we could have IP address. So why domain name? Why do you keep the domain name? Because if it is a domain name, that it has to be converted into IP, then only your computer identifies the location. So relatively, it takes some time, right? But instead of using domain name, it would be better to use the IP directly, right? This is the reality. Remember, remembering facebook.com is too easy than remembering 100, 10, 20, 50. Assume the Facebook server IP address is 100, 10, 20, 10. I took it for an example, right? So which one is easier to remember? Is it facebook.com? Is it remembering facebook.com or remembering that particular numerical figure? You know, remembering numerical figures is always tough, but remembering those English words, so English alphabets, is simple. So everyone remembers facebook.com, but no one remembers that particular IP. Remembering google.lk is too easy. That is domain name, but definitely that google.lk domain name has an IP, but that is not easy to remember. So understand this point. We use domain name instead of IP address because as people, we are unable to remember those thousands of IP addresses. See how many domain names that we remember. We remember many, right? We remember google.lk, your school website address. Even we can remember so many newspaper websites, maybe television channels. So we can remember them. How? All of them are in the name of English words or domain names. If they are in IP addresses, definitely we cannot remember even a single IP address, right? So this is the idea. Domain names are always IP addresses, but people do not remember IP address, so they use domain names. But when we type the domain name, they will be translated or they will be converted into IP for identifying the destinations. Have you understood? So let's check that particular definition and everything, right? So look here. Okay, look here. A domain name is a string of text, right? That means text that maps to a numerical IP address, right? Maps to, it may be leads to, or it is set to numerical IP address. Users type the domain names in English words. However, the actual address of a web page is a numerical IP address, right? So we type in English format, but the reality is they are in the form of numerical figures called IP addresses. Since domain names are easy to remember, people like to have them in English, not in IP format. Got it, right? Okay. So look here. Remembering google.lk is always easier than remembering this this IP address. Assume this is the IP address of the Google server. This is the domain name. So we always remember google.lk, but none of us remembers this 97.74.104.200, right? So this is the idea behind domain name. Okay. So now I realize that you all can understand domain names and the reason for using that in English format. Okay, right. Right. So let's move to the other one. Top level domain name. So now you all can identify, all have the ability to identify the top level domain name. So tell me, what is the top level domain name here, right? How to identify the top level domain name? The last part of the domain name, right? Last part of the domain name. What is the domain name here? It is nie.lk, it's a domain name. So what is the last part? LK. So LK is the TLD here, right? So if I take one more example here, right? So in this example, in the first example, This is the domain name, right? edupgb.gov.lk. This is the domain name. So which is the top level domain name? I already explained. Which is the top level domain name? It is LK, right? You can't say gov because last part of the domain name is TLD, right? So TLD. So why these top level domain names, right? So why, see, in this instance you have LK. In the previous example, right, I have shown you com. Look here. Here you have com. Google.com is the domain name. Com is the top level domain name. So you have com and you have LK and you may have some other things. So why do we have these top level domain names in a URL? The idea is very simple. Look here. If you see this top level domain name LK, you all can identify that this website or this URL belongs to an institution or an organization in Sri Lanka, because that LK shows us that it is in Sri Lanka. So by looking at this top level domain name, as a user, I understand that this institution or this organization belongs to Sri Lanka. Wait, I have to finish, Right, look here. What is the TLD here? Com. So now what can this com, reflect or represent? Now by looking at this com, we are unable to identify the country which this URL belongs, right? Can you identify the particular country of this URL? No, but in the previous instance that LK tells us that it is in Sri Lanka. But here, com doesn't show anything about Sri Lanka or India, because no countries have those words com. So, but what can we understand here? From this com, we cannot identify the country. Yes, we cannot identify the country, but we can identify the type of the organization or the nature of the organization. Com means commercial, right? Commercial. So by looking at this top level domain name com, as a user, I understand that it is a profitable organization. Their main purpose is profit. So that is commercial, right? So now come to the point, right? So we have, listen to me, we have two types of top level domain names. The first one is called generic top level domain name, right? Generic top level domain name, that is here. The second one is called country TLD, country top level domain name. So now, just now, I have shown you two TLDs, right? Two top level domain names. In one URL, the TLD was what? LK. So that TLD is called country TLD, because by looking at that LK, we recognized that particular website or particular organization as Sri Lankan organization. So since that LK represents Sri Lanka, since that LK represents a country, that can be called country top level domain name. Okay. Look at the first one. It is generic TLD. So can you identify, sorry, in my second example, I have shown you google.com. That is domain name. So what is the TLD? Com. So when we see the top level domain name com, none of us identified the country, but we all identified that institution or that organization as a profitable institution or profitable company. So we can identify the nature of the business or nature of the organization, since it is related to the organization nature, organization characteristics. That is called generic TLD. So this is the idea. By looking or by using top level domain names, you can get two representations, so two identifications. If it is a generic TLD, it shows the type of organization or the nature of the organization. If it is a country TLD, it shows the country in which that particular website is registered, right? So now look here. A top-level domain name is the part of a domain that comes after the dot. For example, com, org, or net. I will explain about this. I only explain about com. Later we will take org or net, right? So it would be easy to remember the TLD, the last part of the domain name. It is always after dot, right? So there are two types of top-level domain names. The first one is generic TLD. The other one is called country TLD, right? Okay. Right. So let's take the generic TLD first. Okay. Before I take generic TLD, look at these two TLDs. First one, http www.abc.com. Right. So now you all can see that particular URL. Tell me, by looking at this URL, can you identify the particular country which represents this URL? Is it possible to identify the particular country where this URL is registered? No, right? There is no way. Because here the top level domain name is com. Com doesn't show the country. So now I'm talking about the first URL, right? Keep an eye on the first URL. So by looking at that particular TLD com, you all can identify what the nature of this organization, right? So now we see this ABC company as commercial company, which means their main purpose is to make profit. Look at the second one, right? abc.lk. So what is the top level domain name here? It is LK, right? It is LK. So now, whenever we see this URL, we identify this URL as a country TLD, country top level domain name, because it shows that it is registered in Sri Lanka, because LK belongs to Sri Lanka. So in the second URL, the nature of the organization or the type of the organization is not reflected, is not represented. So the first one, the one which is in red color, is generic TLD. The second one, that is LK, is country TLD. Okay. Right. Now take this generic TLD. It represents the nature of the organizations, right? It represents the nature of the organizations, which means the type of the organization, right? Whether it is a profitable company, whether it is a non-profitable company, whether it is a government organization, whether it is an educational institution, whether it is a networking institutions, whether it's a military organization. So that is the one which I mentioned here, nature of the organization, right? So look here, I have listed some of the top level domain name belongs to generic type, right? All of them are generic type. So this can be the TLD in a URL, right? So look here, com. If a URL has com as TLD, it would be commercial organizations, right? I already mentioned they are profitable companies. If the TLD is ORG, assume there is a URL in the form of http www.abc.org, abc.org. What can you understand from this? Does it show anything about country? No, right? Because the TLD is ORG. So what is reflected here? ORG means non-profitable organization, right? Now, whenever I see that ORG as TLD, I learn that it would be a non-profitable company, right? So there we have net as TLD. Net means network organizations, networking groups or networking companies. They have net as TLD, http www.abc.net, right? So now I see that ABC institution as networking company or something, right? That is network organizations. Then EDU, right? EDU can be TLD. EDU means educational institutions, right? If someone wants to register his or her education institution, it would be better to get TLD in the form of EDU. So those who see EDU can recognize that institution as educational institution, right? So that is EDU. If it is GOV, government organizations, right? So if a government organization wants to register a URL, it would be the best choice is GOV. Finally, military organizations, right? The military organization, it may be any organization related to military, they have MIL as TL. Have you understood? In all these top level domain names, I have listed 6, but there may be more than 6, right? But I have listed some of the most commonly used generic TLDs. In none of these TLDs, the country is reflected. You cannot identify the country or countries when you see these TLDs, but definitely you can identify the type of organization or the nature of the organization when you see these TLD, generic TLDs. So what is commercial, ORG non-profitable, networking, EDU educational companies or institutions, GOV government organizations, MIL military organizations. Okay, right. So now take the country TLD. Right. So as we discussed earlier, country TLD reflects or represents the particular country in which that website is registered. If it is LK, that LK represents Sri Lanka. Similarly, each country has its own TLD. Right? If a company registered in India, it would be in a different country TLD. You cannot get LK for a company in India, right? Because it is registered in India. Definitely, they have to take Indian country TLD. If a company wants to register under country TLD in UK, definitely they have to take their country TLD, right? So look here, I have listed some of the country TLD. If it is Sri Lankan organization, definitely it is LK, right? If it is India, these are TLDs, right? Next to the arrow, I put the TLD. Always or most of the time, these TLDs have 2 letters. Country TLD, right? Country TLDs have 2 letters. LK, India IN, Canada CA, United Kingdom UK, United States US, Australia AU, Japan JP, France FR. Right? So like that, every country has its own country TLD. So if it is http www.abc.in, right? There is a URL http www.abc.in. So now when we see this URL on the screen or somewhere, we learn or we identify that company as an Indian company, because that IN tells us that it is or that belongs to India. But that IN doesn't show anything about its nature. It may be a government institution, it may be a profitable organization, we don't know. But we only understand that it is from India. If there is a URL in the form of http www.abc.uk, right? abc.uk, now that shows us that as a UK company. But it doesn't show anything about the nature of the organization. We don't know anything about education or profitable or non-profitable, nothing found. Okay, so this is the idea, very simple idea. TLDs are always for identifying 2 things. Some TLDs help us to identify the country. Some TLDs help us for identifying the type of that organization, nature of the organization, right? Now I have a question, or you may have this doubt, that's why I take it. Assume that you are running a business, right? You just started a business, own business. Yes, profitable business, like a supermarket or something, right? You just started a supermarket. And also you want to, you want to register your supermarket uh, for having website. So definitely you have to take a URL. Then only your website is visible for others, right? So now you have to take the URL. I will explain about how the domain name is registered or who registers the domain name, everything, right? So now you definitely want a domain name. Even I can say that URL, but in a URL, the most important part is domain name, right? So now you want a domain name. Assume your company name is, or your supermarket name is Smart Supermarket or Smart Supermarket. Okay, that's enough. Smart Supermarket. That is your name, supermarket name. So now, if you want to show your supermarket to the people as a country basis, you can register your domain name as www.smartsupermarket.lk, because now in this instance you want to show your URL or you want to show your domain name to the people in terms of country. So now you have to approach the relevant authorities to get LKTLD. I will show you about how to contact and get it, right? So LK is the idea. So when you have this domain name www.smartsupermarket.lk, all the people who see your domain name take your company as Sri Lankan company. But they don't know whether your institution or your organization is commercial or non-profitable. That kind of an idea is not visible, right? Right. On the other side, suppose if you want to show your website or show your business for the public in terms of the nature of the organization. So sometimes you want to show you in the form of the nature. So in this instance, you have to take a proper generic TLD for your domain name. Since you are running a supermarket, it would be commercial. Commercial is the best. So your domain name would be smartsupermarket.com. So now you have two choices, right? One is for showing or representing the type of the organization. The other one is representing the country. It is totally up to you, right? You are the one who can decide. So if you want to show the country, go with LK. If you want to show that type of the business or the nature of the organization, go with generic TLD. In this instance, it's COM. Similarly, assume that there is a similar incident in India. There is a person who is running a business, wants to get a domain name. But he is in India, right? Now he wants a domain name. He has two choices. What are they? If he wants to represent the country, definitely he has to register under IN, right? India, because in India the TLD is IN. So if his supermarket is X supermarket, he can take X supermarket or X supermart.in, X supermart.in. On the other side, if that person wants to show their type of business to the public, he has to register under generic TLD. Of course, it is COM. So he would go with www.xsupermart.com. He also has two choices. Have you understood, right? So these are the two things: top level domain name related to generic. Generic means nature of the organization. Top level domain name belongs to country. So each country has TLDs. I also explain a simple example, try to understand, right? So if it is a company, you have two choices. One is going with country TLD. The other one is registering under generic TLD. Okay, I want to clarify something. So here you have many generic TLDs. All of them are generic TLDs, right? But we have so many COMs. There are so many URLs which have COM as TLD. And also we have so many ORG. Maybe net also possible, right? You can find net in some URLs. But EDU, GOV, MIL are extremely difficult to find in URLs. Even I can say that there are no URLs in Sri Lanka with the TLD, GOV or MIL or something. Because this EDU, GOV, MIL, all of them are TLDs. But mostly up to now, they are implemented within United States of America. They use such TLDs for their organizations, but they are not used in other countries. Other countries use COM, ORG, NET, all of them are widely used, but maybe these three, EDU, GOV, MIL, are restricted within the United States of America up to now, right? Maybe it may be expanded in the near future, but still they are in one country. That's why we are unable to see any URLs with MIL as TLDs or GOV as TLDs in Sri Lanka, right? Even take one or two Sri Lankan websites. What is the official website of Sri Lankan government? www.gov.lk, right? gov.lk. What is the TLD here? It is GOV. www.gov.lk. What is the TLD here? It is LK. So here, Sri Lankan government wants to represent the country. I can take one more example. See, if it is examination department, examination department website, right? That is one of the most famous website in Sri Lanka because they often release your results. www.donets.lk, right? donets.lk. What is the TLD? It is LK. So they want to show their country, right? Not, but it is an education institution, right? They may use EDU, but it is LK. Even Sri Lanka Ministry of Education, www.moe.gov.lk. I repeat it, www.moe.gov.lk. So what is the domain name? moe.gov.lk. This is the domain name. TLD, again LK. It doesn't show anything about education, right? So it is a country. Even if it is a Sri Lankan defense, right? Sri Lankan Defense Ministry or Defense Department has the domain name defense.lk, www.defense.lk. It doesn't show the type of the organization. It doesn't include MIL as TLD. It shows the country, right? So I hope that you can understand these differences, right? So if they want to show their country, yes, they can use the country TLD. On the other side, if they want to show the type of the organization, definitely they can pick the correct TLD, right? Because using irrelevant TLD for generic is useless, right? Assume that you are running a non-profitable club. So can you register your club as COM? No, right? It is useless. So you have to take ORG because your organization is non-profitable. So better go with ORG. And also you have another choice, that is registering under country TLD. So you can take LK also. Okay. So these are the two top-level domain names: country top-level domain name and generic top-level domain name, right? So I hope that you all have that idea, right, about these two, right? So now we finished those parts, right? Now I mentioned 6 parts. Take all these 6 parts. Protocol. Now we know, right? We know what the term protocol is. World Wide Web, we all know because we already discussed about WW. That is second part. Domain name, yes, today we discussed about domain name. So now you know the term domain name. That is number 3. Number 4, TLD, top level domain name. Yes, just now we discussed, right? So we know that. Number 6, page name or resource name. I told you that there's nothing to discuss about page name because that is the web page name, right? So we know it. Last one, right? The last one is what? That path, right? Folders or path to a location. So all these paths, all these parts now clear, right? So if you take this one, you can, now you know protocol. I'm talking about the definition, right? You know the term protocol. You know the term World Wide Web. You know the term domain name. You know the term TLD. You know the term web page name. And also you know the path. All of them are clear now. So now at this instance, I expect 2 things from you, right? At this instance, since we finished all these things related to URL, I expect 2 things from you. What is the first one? You have the ability to identify the parts in a URL, right? Of course you can. Second one, I want you to remember those descriptions or definitions about those most important 3 words: protocol, domain name, top level domain name, right? If you have that ability, that's more than enough enough for this part, right? Okay, so let's move to the other part. Since still we are in internet, right, we have to finish something. Okay, come to this one, servers, right? So in grade 10 second unit, we discussed about server client network. Just, recall it. So we discussed about server client network. Look at this diagram. Look at this small, I can call this as network, right? There is a small network. There are some computers connected, right? This is a computer, this is a computer, here computer, even this mobile phone is a computer, even this is also computer. I can say that there are 5 computers connected. There are 4 of them there, and also there is 1 computer in the middle. So you have 5 computers. What is server? Server is a machine, or server is a computer which provides services to the client computers in the network. See, in a network, you may have many computers, but one of the computers in that particular network has the ability to provide multiple services to the rest of the computers. In this particular picture, right, in this particular picture, this computer has the ability to provide services for this one, here, here. So since the middle computer has the ability to provide services to the others, it is called server, because its primary function is to provide services. So it is called server. So how to call the other computers? Look at this, how to call the other computers? They are clients, because they receive services from the server. They cannot give anything back to the server, but they receive something from the server. In fact, they receive services from the server. They are called clients, right? So this is the first one, special computers which provide services to the other computers connected in the network. They are called servers. We have number of servers, right? There are many servers available in a network. All these servers provide services to the client computers, right? So look here, I have mentioned 3 examples because in your book they have only 3. So better to restrict with 3 examples, but there are more than 3 servers in networks. So we have web server, we have mail server, we have DNS server. Not all these things are servers. So their primary role is to provide services. But the only difference between these 3 is The type of services provided is different. I repeat it, all these things, web server, mail server, DNS server, all of them are servers. But they have different names. Look at them, web server, mail server, DNS server. We cannot call them as servers, right? We don't call them in a command word, using a command word server, because they provide multiple services or different services to their clients. So since these servers provide different services to the clients, we name them as web server, mail server, DNS server. The type of service provided by web server is different than the type of service provided by mail server. And also it is different than the type of service provided by DNS server. Have you understood? So we have to discuss these, discuss about these three servers, right? So first of all, let's take the web server. We have to understand the term web server first. Right, it's very simple. We already discussed, I think I explained this web server when we discussed about World Wide Web. Do you remember that? It's a very simple idea. Web server is a server which keeps all the web pages inside. I repeat it, web servers are computers which keep web pages inside. For example, maybe some minutes earlier, I have shown you a particular URL, right? www.nie.lk. Definitely it's a URL, so it is related to a web page. So where is that particular web page located? It is in a web server. If you take the Facebook URL, www.facebook.com, so definitely that Facebook website located in a server that is called web server. So it's very simple. The web pages are kept in web servers. So if I take around the world, there may be billions of web pages. All these billions of web pages are located in servers. Not one server, right? There are many servers located in different parts of the world. But all these web pages definitely kept inside of web servers. And also these web servers are running 24 hours in a day, and also they are working 7 days in a week. You cannot shut down those web servers, because if you shut down a web server, how can the website visible to the others? See, anytime you can see or you can visit to Facebook, anytime you can visit to Google, anytime you can visit to your school website. Where are those websites? I mentioned that they are in web servers. If it is anytime access, definitely those servers are not to be shutting down. They are running all the days in a year. Not only year, forever they are running, right? So they are web servers. Look here, I have shown a simple idea. See, this is your computer, right? Listen to me. This is your computer, right? Your machine. In your machine or on your computer, you type that URL, right? http www.facebook.com. So what happens when you type, look here, your browser connects to the server and requests a page. So when you type www.facebook.com, your computer sends a request to whom? To the server. According to my example, it's Facebook server. But don't worry about how my computer identify the location. That would be explained in the next class, right? So now you have to understand that your computer sends a request to the web server because you type the URL, domain name. So what happens? That server sends the page back to the computer, right? Look at the term, the server sends back the requested page. So in my case, Facebook homepage is received by my computer. So what is the role of this of the web server? Storing the web pages as well as sending them to the clients. Storing the web pages and distributing or sending to the clients. That is web server. So now listen to my my definition about server. What did I mention about server? It's a computer which provides services to the other computers. Now, what type of service is provided by this web server? What type of service is provided by this web server? It is web page. My computer wants the web page. So that Facebook server, which means web server, sends that. So that web server sends that web page as a service. So that is a web server. Okay. So this is the first server, but we have many servers to discuss. So this is very short. Servers are computers which provide services to the other computers. Other computers are always called client computers, right? There are multiple servers used in network, but we have to discuss, or we have to remember about 3 servers: web server, mail server, DNS server. What is web server? It's a server which keeps web pages inside, and also it sends those web pages to the client computer. So that is a service, right? So we have to discuss about the other 2 servers. They are DNS server and mail server, right? So it's enough for today. We will discuss those other stuffs in the next class. So try spending some time at home and watch this video. I will try to send the soft copy again. So understand the things. If you have doubt, text me, right? I can clarify in the next class, right? So that's it. Thank you.